I've now activated my wildcard and my team is looking extremely strong, especially for the upcoming game weeks. Hello everyone, my name is Akshay and welcome back to a brand new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to take you through my wildcard team selection because like you saw in the intro, I have activated my wildcard. We're going to go through the in-depth stats of all of my starting lineup, and a couple days ago I did upload my wildcard draft, so we're going to go through the changes that I am considering for my final team selection before the deadline tomorrow. If you are new around here, please do subscribe to the channel. I am trying to hit 2,000 subscribers, and also like the video. If we can hit 100 likes on this video, that would be amazing. But other than that, let's get into my wildcard team selection. So let's get into my wildcard team selection. Just a quick note, I do have £1.8 million spare in this team, which will allow me to plan transfers and rejig my team if needed going into the future game weeks. So we'll start off in goal and defence. So I have Sanchez, Chilwell, Gvardiol and Estepinian. Chelsea and Man City specifically have some insane fixtures coming up. Chelsea have Luton, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Aston Villa and Fulham in their next 5. And City have Sheffield United, Fulham, West Ham, Nottingham Forest and Wolves. So those fixtures can't go ignored, especially for a defence. I know Chelsea have been a little bit rocky with conceding goals. However, you just can't ignore those fixtures. And Gvardiol adds a little bit more of stability and security in the defence because I don't want to just have full-on attacking defenders in the team, which can also concede goals as well. So you would expect Man City to keep 5 out of 5 clean sheets there. But anyway, let's get onto the in-depth stats for each of these players. So we'll start off with Sanchez. His ownership is very low at only 4.5%, so it's a very good differential. His expected points are 4.5 for game week 3. Over the next 5 games, his expected points are 20. He's got an expected clean sheets of 0.46 for game week 3. Expected clean sheets over the next 5 games of 1.7. And his goalkeeper ranking for game week 3, which is for the highest expected points ranked, is 2nd place, and over the next 5 game weeks is 3rd place. So overall, some really nice, well-rounded stats there for Sanchez, and his fixtures are very, very strong. So let's see what happens with him. Next, moving on to Chilwell. He's basically playing in a left wing position for the most part for Chelsea at the moment, because whenever Chelsea are on the front foot, he's so high up the pitch, even sometimes he's in a striker position. So for an attacking threat positioning wise for a defender, I don't think there's anybody better than Chilwell. But anyway, let's get onto his stats. He has a 26% ownership. His expected points for game week 3 are 5. His expected points over the next 5 games are 21.5. In game week 3, Chelsea have an expected clean sheets of 0.46. And his defender ranking for the highest predicted points is number 1 for game week 3. And then across the next 5 games, his defender ranking is 6th place. So overall, really nice for Chilwell there as well. Now let's move along the defense to Gvardiol. So for me personally, I believe that Gvardiol and Akanji will probably be the most nailed on City defenders, but you just never know with Pep Roulette. So I'm backing Gvardiol, and let's get onto his stats for game week 3. So he has a 4.6% ownership, also a very nice differential. His expected points for game week 3 are 4.5. His expected points over the next 5 games are a little bit higher than the other two, which is 22.6. And then Man City's expected clean sheets are 0.5 for in game week 3. His defender ranking is 3rd for game week 3, and his defender ranking over the next 5 games is 2nd for predicted points. So very nice stats there for Gvardiol, and I really do like the rankings for predicted points there as well, which just kind of further cements my decision to have him in my team and that security aspect. So yeah, very happy with that decision. And then moving on next to Estepinian. He's been the most exciting defender for sure for the first 2 game weeks. He has a 62% ownership, which is so high. So he's definitely a must-have for your team, because if he does well, it could really, really hurt your rank. His expected points for game week 3 are 4.6, and then across the next 5 games are 20. He has actually a higher expected goals and assists than the others, which is why I'll mention that here. His expected goals is 0.1 and his expected assists is 0.24. Brighton's expected clean sheets are 0.37. His defender ranking in game week 2 is 2nd place, and then his defender ranking across the next 5 games is 7th. So decent there as well. I know Brighton have some tough fixtures coming up in game week 4 and 5 as they play Newcastle and Man United. But if you have strong enough people on your bench and you don't want to play Estepinian for those games like I have, then you can easily just switch him out. Now let's move on to my midfield. So I have Saka, Foden, Mitoma and Mbeumo. I will give you a little sneak peek of one of the players I have on my bench, and that is James Maddison. I have kept him in, but I'll get onto the reason why I've kept him in my team, even though he is probably going to be injured or not play a full 90 minutes in game week 3. But we'll start off with Saka anyway. He has a 66% ownership. He is the most owned midfielder in the game. His expected points are 5.2 for game week 3. Across the next 5 games, his expected points are 25.2. His expected goals and assists in game week 3 are 0.33 and 0.26, and Arsenal's expected clean sheets are 0.41. However, his midfielder ranking has dropped dramatically. So in game week 3, his midfielder ranking is 8th, and also across the next 5 games, his midfielder ranking is 8th. And that is for one reason and one reason only. As soon as we found out that Odegaard took the penalty in game week 2, for some reason, Saka's predicted points dropped, and also Saka's rankings dropped. So I think that was a massive overreaction. I don't think the predicted points are super accurate, because I do still think that Saka is going to probably take at least half of the penalties for Arsenal, but we just have to wait and see. But yeah, still the must-have Arsenal midfielder in my team. Odegaard is also a good shout now that he may be on penalties, but for me, Saka is the main driving force in that Arsenal attack. Next up, we have Phil Foden, and this is a very exciting pick for me. I know a lot of managers have moved to Foden for game week 3 because of City's good upcoming fixtures, and with obviously De Bruyne being out and stuff like that. He has a 12.2% ownership, so he is under differential territory. His expected points for game week 3 are 5.5, and then over the next 5 games is quite high. His expected points are 28.3. His expected goals for game week 3 is 0.37, expected assists 0.24, and City's expected clean sheets, like we saw with Guardiola, are 0.53. His midfielder ranking, however, is only 5th for game week 3, and his midfielder ranking for the next 5 games is 4th. And with those expected points over the next 5 being quite high, I would have expected his midfielder ranking to be quite higher. However, the AI is putting Man United and Liverpool assets very high up on the list for expected points and the rankings. So yeah, I think that is a little bit harsh on his rankings as well. However, it is what it is, and I think he is a great pick to go forward, especially for the next few game weeks. Now getting on to the third midfielder in my starting lineup, and that is Mitoma. So he has a 43% ownership. I believe he's the 3rd highest owned midfielder in the game at the moment. His expected points for game week 3 are 5.2. Across the next 5 games, he has an expected points of 24.6, and then his expected goals for game week 3 is 0.34. His expected assists, however, are quite high at 0.31, and then Brighton's expected clean sheets are 0.37. His midfielder rankings for game week 3 are 7th place, and across the next 5 games are 10th place, which is understandable because Brighton do have some tougher fixtures coming up, so there are probably going to be other players that have expected points a lot higher than Mitoma going into like game week 4 and 5. But I've been super impressed with what I've seen with him and Brighton as a whole, and Mitoma is that player, as we saw in the goal he scored in game week 2, to just take on 4 or 5 players and score a goal out of nothing. So he's basically makes something out of nothing. He is that man for Brighton, and he's just such an exciting player to watch. Passes the eye test every single game. So a very good Brighton asset to have. But you can go very much differential and go down the Solly March route, which I believe Solly March has around 30% less ownership than Mitoma. So if you did want to take a punt on that, then that could, if that works out for you, that could be huge for your rank. But for me, I'm just going a little bit more safe and sticking with Mitoma. And then finally, the last midfielder in my starting lineup is Mbeumo. So he has a 20.5% ownership. His expected points for game week 3 are 5.2. His expected points across the next 5 games are 26.1. In game week 3, he has an expected goals of 0.34 and an expected assist of 0.29, which is decent. And then Brentford have an expected clean sheets of 0.4. His midfielder ranking is 9th for game week 3, and across the next 5 games, it bumps up to 6th place. So nice overall stats there for Mbeumo. His price has increased to 6.7 mil now, so that is just something to be aware of if you can't afford him. But of course, with the Toney suspension, he is the main man in the Brentford team now. He's also on penalties, so overall, a really well-rounded player to have in your team. And he has started the season super well, scoring 3 goals in his first 2 games. So as I explained earlier on, I do have James Maddison on my bench, but I am in a little bit of a predicament here, whether to keep Maddison, even though he might not play or he might not even get a full 90 minutes because of the injury doubt, or switch him out for Rashford for this week, because it is giving me a tiny little bit of FOMO. I know I did say I haven't been impressed with Man United at all, but there is a gut feeling that I have that Rashford will go back to the left wing position, and their home data is very, very strong, and Nottingham Forest's away data isn't the strongest. So I may make that move. Let me know in the comments down below whether you think I should bring Rashford back in for game week 3 and switch him out for Maddison. And make sure you follow me on Twitter, because I post a ton of FPL tips there daily, and also I do post my final team selection before the deadline hits on Twitter. So make sure you don't miss that by following me over there. So let's talk about Maddison versus Rashford in a little bit more detail here. So I've got my compare graphic up. Let's first start with the prices. Obviously, there is a £1.4 million price difference because Maddison is 7.6 mil and Rashford's 9 mil. The ownership is quite a big difference here. Maddison's ownership is 14% only and Rashford's is 44%. In the first 2 games, Maddison has made 8 key passes, Rashford only making 3 key passes. I know Rashford is more of a goal scorer and Maddison is more of an assister, so take from that what you want. Their expected goal involvements, however, so this is expected assists plus expected goals in the first 2 games. Maddison's is 0.98 and Rashford's is 0.62, so quite a fair bit higher there. And then their expected points going into the next 5 games, Maddison has 25 expected points and Rashford has 29 expected points. But there is something to consider here. Maddison is based off not playing a full 90 minutes in game week 3, and if he was based on playing the full 90 minutes, I believe that his expected points would be very close to what Rashford's is saying at the moment, because just look at those next 3 fixtures for Spurs. They've got Bournemouth, Burnley and Sheffield United, and when you compare that to Man United's next 3 fixtures, they've got Nottingham Forest and then 2 very difficult fixtures against Arsenal and Brighton. So let me know what you guys think I should do. Shall I bring Rashford back in for game week 3 and then make another transfer and switch him back out for Maddison? Or do you think I should stick to my guns, keep Maddison on my bench and play a 3-4-3 formation for this week, and then I can revert my team around when you guys see the rest of my subs? But anyway, let's get on to the rest of my team. So we'll get into the forwards and defence now. So up front I have Wissa, Nicholas Jackson and Haaland, and then on my bench I've got Martinez, Maddison, Udogie and Rico Henry. So we'll begin with the forwards. So Wissa and Brentford have really nice fixtures coming up as well. They've got Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Newcastle being difficult, Everton and Nottingham Forest in the next 5 games, and you would expect Mboma and Wissa to grab some goals and assists in those games 100%. Obviously, we've spoken about Chelsea's fixtures with Chilwell and Sanchez already, but Nicholas Jackson did make an interesting post on Instagram yesterday. He said, "Fall 2 times, we rise the 3rd." Basically insinuating that he hasn't scored in the first 2 games and he definitely is going to score in the 3rd game. So he seems very fired up and he's been really impressive, don't get me wrong. Even though he hasn't scored, he's been super impressive. I love how direct he is. I love his attacking positioning, and that link up that we might be seeing blossom between him and Sterling is also quite positive as well. And those fixtures there, he is bound to finally score a few goals, because as an attacker you'll just be relishing those fixtures. But anyway, let's get on to the expected data for my forwards. So we'll start with Wissa. His ownership is 13.8%, so it is a differential as well. His expected points for game week 3 are 4.7. Across the next 5 games, his expected points are 23.3, which is basically 4.7 points per game. His expected goals in game week 3 is 0.35, expected assists 0.13, and he has a higher forward ranking than I expected him to have. So for game week 4 and across the next 5 games, he has a forward ranking of 4th place, which is quite impressive, seeing as he does get taken off quite a lot of the time, especially around the 70th minute. So to have that high of a forward ranking is very impressive, and obviously he has started the season very well, scoring 2 goals in 2 games. But yeah, let's move on to Nicholas Jackson now. He has an ownership of 17.5%. His expected points for game week 3 are 5.5, and across the next 5 games, 26.1, which is quite nice to have. His expected goals for game week 3 are 0.54, his expected assists 0.12, and he also has the same forward ranking in game week 3 and also in the next 5 games of 2nd place. Obviously, you know who it's going to be behind, but that is really, really impressive stats and expected data as well there. So I'm very confident in the Nicholas Jackson move. I do think he's going to start to score goals now, but yeah, we can hope and pray for us Nicholas Jackson owners that he does hit the ground running come game week 3. And then finally moving on to Mr. Robot, and that is Erling Haaland. He has an ownership of 91.2%, guys, the highest in FPL history. If you don't own him, I have no words for you. I don't know what you're doing, because you'll get such a big rank decrease if he performs, because he's basically owned by the whole game. His expected points for game week 3 are 8.3. Across the next 5 games, he blows everybody out of the park. 43.6 expected points, which equals a points per game of 8.7. His expected goals for game week 3 are 1.1. His expected assists are 0.21. And then obviously he is number 1 in the charts for the forward rankings for game week 3 and also across the next 5 games of first place. And I don't think anyone is going to get that first place spot for the forwards across the whole season unless Haaland gets injured. So yeah, that is how my starting 11 is shaping up. Do let me know what you think of the starting 11 and especially whether I should be making that Rashford to Maddison change, because if I do that change, I will replace Wissa with Rashford and put Wissa down on my bench and then obviously play Rashford and play a 3-5-2 this week. But yeah, quickly just touching on my subs. Martinez, I did make clear that this team is very forward thinking and I have tried to think about game week 8 onwards as well, especially with the budget, and you can see that with Martinez because most likely I'm not going to be playing him at all across the next 5 game weeks. But then Aston Villa are ranked to have the best fixtures going into game week 8 to game week 15, which is why I have Martinez in my team. So I am just pre-planning some of my team starting with Martinez, and I am hoping that he is going to start to get some price increases to the build-up of those Aston Villa good fixtures. But I thought, why not get him early, because it's not going to hurt, because I am probably going to have Sanchez as my perma goalkeeper for the next 5 game weeks. And then Maddison, he is a must-have for me, but it's just that injury situation, because if I do transfer him out this week, I probably will bring him back in game week 5. And then Udogi's been very impressive in the first 2 games for me as well. I like how advanced he is, similar to Chilwell and Estepinian, and Spurs did keep a clean sheet against Man United, so maybe this is the start of a more of a solid Spurs defence, and their next 3 fixtures are very nice, so he probably will be starting for game week 4 and 5 for me. And then Rico Henry, as I mentioned with Mboma and Wissa, their fixtures are really, really good as well. But yeah, it's just a nice, reliable pick to have on my bench if there are any injuries that happen or anything like that. Like I said, this team does have £1.8 million in the bank, and I am going to be heavily targeting Newcastle assets come game week 6 with the likes of Trippier, Isak. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with this team. Please do let me know what you think of this team in the comments down below. And like always guys, if you do have any questions or dilemmas for your teams for game week 3 or the game weeks going forward, leave a comment and I will reply to all of them. If you did enjoy this video, please do subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel out, and also leave a like on this video. If we could hit 100 likes, that would be amazing. But other than that guys, good luck for game week 3, and I will see you in a few days time for a brand new FPL video.